Well, thank you for joining us. This is Beyond the Binder, how independent GMs create consistent excellence and better LQA scores with the newly selected preferred technology provider through the leading hotels of the world's leading strategic sourcing program, Yipy. My name is Jason E. Manis. I am Yipy's CMO, and I am joined by Adam, co-founder and CEO of Yipy. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Jason.
And the one and the only Alicia
Good
Heathcote.
day. Good day, everyone.
Thank you for your time, Alicia.
My pleasure.
Especially so, real quick. We're really happy to be here. We're really excited about being part of the leading family, if you will, and serving the members. And so expect an announcement from leading, I think, next week, I think. And so you'll start to see our name more and more as time goes on. And we look forward to interacting with you, serving you any way we can. And we wanted to kick it off, the relationship, and bring on Adam and Alicia, for example, because their backgrounds are so amazing, and it's so fitting for what we're going to talk about today. So real quick, bear with me. One thing I did just realize, folks, is I didn't share my beautiful um, my beautiful thing I created, so that we we can- we all know where we're at. But I'll leave that up while I'll introduce Alicia. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with you, and if I get this wrong, you correct me. But you you are the director of service excellence at the Ritz Carlton at JW Marriott Orlando Grand Lakes, and unique perspective from her extensive experience at Forbes Travel Guide. During her tenure at Forbes, Alicia served in multiple leadership roles, including Learning and Development Services Manager and Senior Editor and Field Evaluator. For 7 years, she was on the front lines as a Forbes Travel Guide inspector, evaluating luxury properties around the world against the industry's most rigorous standards. This hands on experience gave her an intimate understanding of what truly defines service excellence. In her role managing learning and development services at Forbes, Alicia helped shape how the world's finest hotels deliver exceptional guest experience. She worked directly with properties to translate Forbes' exacting standards into actionable training and operational excellence. Today, as Director of Service Excellence at the Ritz Carlton at JW, Alicia continues to champion the highest levels of hospitality, bringing her unique blend of inspection expertise and training leadership to one of Orlando's premier luxury destinations. I get that right?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then there's Adam. No, 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 no. Adam's got a great background. And I'm thrilled to introduce Adam, and I'm thrilled to be working with Adam and the Yippee team. Adam brings a unique perspective shaped by his journey from luxury hotelier to technology innovator. He began his career with Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, where he gained deep expertise in luxury service delivery and guest management. This hands on operational excellence gave him an intimate understanding of the daily challenges hotels face in maintaining consistent standards. After transitioning into consulting, Adam founded Economic Luxury, where he trained non luxury properties in exceptional service delivery. It was during this time that he witnessed the same pattern repeatedly. Hotels would invest thousands in training programs only to watch everything collapse back to baseline within weeks. The problem wasn't the training, it was that standards lived in binders, PDFs, and tribal knowledge. This realization led Adam to co found Yipy, creating a revolutionary platform that transforms fragmented hotel standards into one living source of operational truth. Today, Yipy helps hotels and management groups define, distribute, measure, and improve every standard across brands, properties, and teams. Did I miss anything, Adam?
Think that's it, you know? What a great opportunity to be here, and I am excited.
Cool. Uh, I'd like to stop sharing my little thing here. So give me just a second to fumble around with. Oh, dadgummit. It's the big red button that you can't miss. Back. All right. All right. So if you two wonderful people are ready, let's jump in.
Of course.
What are the daily challenges operational leaders face in keeping teams consistent across shifts and departments? Alicia?
That's a great question, Jason. I think one of our biggest challenges is messaging. How do we keep messaging consistent? What are the objectives we have every single day, and how do we keep that going from shift to shift, day to day, covering someone's days off or et cetera? And I think having standards to refer back to always helps us because it keeps us on message with our employees every single day. What are we going for? And having all of our standards together and central and centrally accessible to everyone really makes that much, much easier because communication, especially in operations as large as mine, one of my hotels is 1,010 rooms and the other is 582 rooms. I mean, that's not an easy thing to keep that communication going. So when we kind of standardize some of that messaging around our service objectives, it really helps us in our service delivery and we see it pay off in our guest satisfaction as well.
What do you think,
Yeah.
Adam?
Oh, you know what? In my experience with actually being on the ground and behind the desk and with the guests and being a consultant in it, I would honestly, the first word that came to my mind was everything gets in the way. You know, I mean, it is such a challenge to be present and making sure that you are doing everything and knowing everything. And also you have the complexities of uh each team members and associates day, mood, experience, background, understanding, and then the variety that the guest brings, right? And so they're going to bring with different challenges and obstacles and all of these different things. And so I think part of it is if when we think about standards or we think about things like this, it's saying how do we cement them into our knowledge that now we're not trying to call them back to call on them, but instead of use them as as a tool and making sure, okay, how do I help this person feel recognized? How do I make sure I elevate this experience, and customize it or create a sense of place or anything like that. So I think it's understanding that standards are delivered and excellence is delivered not out of the playbook, but out of the everyday moments, right? It is happening live in front of us.
That's a lot of rooms, Alicia. How many employees?
Um, we have about 1,300 full-time employees, and then we have hundreds of on-call employees in addition to third-party people who might be here on a daily basis. So it's quite a few bodies wandering around, plus our
Yes.
guests.
Yes.
Many guests.
Okay. So why do even top performing hotels struggle with standards fragmentation and how does it show up in guest experience?
Well, I think there are a lot of different sources of properties like mine would have standards from, right? We're looking to achieve star ratings. So we're looking at Forbes Travel Guide. LQA is a barometer for us in Marriott International in terms of our brand standards. We have compliance things that we have to follow. So having all of these different messages coming into us all the time creates confusion for our employees if we don't handle it in a streamlined way. So putting all of our standards together from all of these sources and saying these are our standards and you just need this one standards playbook really helps us create a more consistent guest experience because we were not paying attention at all to LQA, for example, until the last year when Marriott brought it into our fold. So it was not something we had considered. And so we had to think about what are we going to follow from that standards perspective and what are we going to follow from FTG perspective and our general idea is to find the highest standard of any set of standards and we follow that But so then we achieve all standards, but we have to bring them in together into one set and say, these are our standards. And that's how we message it to our employees, that these are just our standards. They're not from any different source. And then we distribute them accordingly. And that really, really helps us because our people don't all necessarily remember or learn everything from many different sources. It's much easier to simplify, especially when you have that many employees running around. You need a consistent message all the time. It's so important.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in there if I can on it, because when you think and you look at a hotel, especially one like Alicia's running, right? Especially one that's focused on excellence at its finest. And I think that, when we think about standards, obviously, oftentimes standards get lumped into the requirements, or sometimes they get lumped into these like, okay, if you don't do these, then things fail or miss. And really, I think when we look at the fragmentation of standards, that result is when we look at standards as the LQA experience, or the Forbes Travel Guide experience, or we look at it as the American Express experience or the Marriott experience, right? Or requirements or standards. What ends up happening is as team members, right? These in Alicia's case, the ladies and gentlemen there at the Ritz Carlton, or the team members there at the JW, as they're thinking of that, when we fragment our standards, we also fragment our service experiences. And we think, okay, it was good enough, right? Okay, fine. Or, okay, I think I did everything that I needed to do in this bucket. Where when we, as exactly as Alicia was saying, when we centralize those standards and we truly look to say, okay, how do we put everything together? And I'm not just focusing on health department needs, or city needs, or what my general manager or front office manager or housekeeping director wants, or Forbes or LQA or American Express, anything. But we're truly focusing on what is the experience that I get to provide at my property. What does it mean to be at this property? And I think that those are pieces of Forbes travel guide experiences, of the LQA, of local insight, leadership, directives, guidance, of really being able to say, hey, this isn't about creating a XYZ experience. It's about creating our experience for our guests and our team members to make sure that they have the true experience that they need to have.
From a Forbes and LQA perspective, um, what behaviors and systems separate hotels that sustain excellence from those that might fluctuate?
Mm. Great question. So I had the privilege of evaluating hundreds of hotels around the world when I was with Forbes Travel Guide, and I could always tell what score the property was going to get when I checked out, uh, based on my experience of with the team members there and how they performed and if they were consistent across departments. Because every single year, in addition to evaluating dozens, hundreds of hotels, I would read thousands of FTG reports, and I could tell you five-star hotels get five-star scores across all departments. Every department is executing at the same level. So if you want a high-performing hotel, everyone has to have buy-in. You have to have consistency from all areas. It's not just housekeeping, it's not just food and beverage. Your fitness center has to be on top of its game too. That really separates the creme de la creme from those that are also RANs. So getting everyone on board requires training and understanding of the expectations, and the expectations come from your standards. What standards are you holding in every single area, and are you holding everyone accountable to them? It's evident every single time.
Adam, anything to
You
add?
know, Amen. I think is the best way to say that. Amen. Shameless plug, the best hotels in the world that want to get systems to put in. We'll throw in a little Yipy there to help them do that. But I think that when you look at hotels that truly are looking to improve that experience, and I'll be maybe bold and say not only improve the experience in chasing a rating of some sort, but also improve customer service and experience in general. If you're looking to improve your net promoter score or whatever that may be, the hotels that realize that this is not something that's left up to chance. It's not something that should just be left up to, hey, let's stand up and do a little get together in the morning and make sure everyone knows what's going on. Those are great activities. It's the hotels that really lock in, that utilize their systems to be on the same page, to turn this into, to turn things into action and use data to help guide and drive their decisions. Those are the hotels that really make the difference, right? And so you have to really say, how do we lock in as a property? How do we do this? And it makes both cents and dollars to do so, right? These ratings and these accolades and these service performances, they're not just great because people are nice and they have good times. They're also revenue drivers as well. Yeah.
So speaking of technology, so help operational leaders turn audits into learning and coaching opportunities. How does that help?
Mm. Well, I think, we're in a people business, so our inclination is always to talk about everything. But technology can help us from an efficiency standpoint in terms of the efficiency of coaching. Because if I have an actual audit, in my phone with pictures, I can show that to someone rather than just talking about it. I can send it to them. They can learn about it. They can have that feedback and documented for their future growth. It also, frankly, helps with a paper trail for accountability purposes. Of course, we hope to never get to that, but it helps people understand coaching more because they get to see photos of maybe missteps or things they did well. We like to, of course, highlight things people did well. We can have training tools embedded within technology that help us show how we should achieve the standard and compare it against how maybe we fell a little short or how we did achieve the standard. And I think that really helps show our ladies and gentlemen and associates here how they are doing really well, or maybe they need some more assistance in achieving the expectations. Plus, today's employees, they want everything kind of on their phone or bite size. They want a visual, those kinds of things. It really helps relate to the today's current employee as well.
Amen again. I feel like I'm like chasing Alicia's answers because they're so good, and I just love listening to everything that you have to say, Alicia. It's so great. And let me pull maybe my own personal experience. What Jason didn't highlight about my background is I actually, well, yes, I had a wonderful career with Four Seasons. Prior to my career with Four Seasons, I was at a La Quinta. A La Quinta Inn and Suites in Las Vegas. So it was a wonderful hotel. Really enjoyed it. And I love that my journey in my hospitality employment and career put me working at a La Quinta on a Wednesday and a Four Seasons on a Thursday, right? The next day. I didn't even have time off between the two. And man, there was a lot of standards going into the luxury thing. And I will tell you from my personal experience on the overwhelm of being like, am I doing this right? Am I, what is going on? And when we think about doing audits, when we think about doing these things, again, a word that has built up probably some negative connotations within our industry, audit, inspection, ugh. But I know from my own personal experience that confidence is built with competence, right? When I know, gosh, I'm doing this right. I know these standards. I know how to do this check-in. And as my competence increases, my confidence increases, and vice versa. As my confidence increases, so does my competence. And when you have the opportunity to go back and refer to documents, when you can go back and you can check yourself and say, heck yes, like I nailed this. Awesome. Good job. Pat yourself on the back. But even more importantly, when your leader steps out and says, hey, I watched that interaction, or I went behind you in your room, or I just, a room that you've cleaned, or I walked into the lobby space that you prepared, or listened to the phone call, whatever those may be. Here's where you nailed it. Yippee. Here's where you crushed. amazing. And more so, also additionally, hey, here's areas where you can get, improve. We should not be afraid of giving that feedback as leaders. In fact, we should be leaning into it, using those audits to help these leaders, our team members and leaders, of course, everyone really understand how do we deliver excellence? What does it look like, sound like, feel like? And when we get to make that personal connection, because ultimately that's what it comes down to, the personal connection that the individual has with the delivery of the experience, that's when gold happens, right? That's when magic occurs. And so using those audits, using tools and equipments to allow us to have those meaningful conversations, to build confidence, to strengthen competence, all of that, I think, really builds for a successful operation.
Early on, Adam, you had mentioned um, a hotel's individuality.
Yeah.
So how do you preserve a hotel's individuality while ensuring service is executed the same way
Oh,
every time?
I love this question because service, like service continuity, does not mean robotic experiences, right? That is not what we are looking for. This is actually why I love that hotels, we're all flocking to AI, right? One of my biggest fears is that everyone's going to be turned into an AI robot, and all of a sudden, all of the experiences will be the exact same. Because really, what happens is when you have, as I was talking about, this confidence and competence in standards, once you know them, once you know what the expectations are, they're yours. You're the master of those experiences now. You get to step into these experiences with these guests and saying, okay, I know what what are the key elements to creating and delivering the experience that this guest is expecting or deserves to have for booking at my property, right? When someone steps into Alicia's property, there are some brand promises that are made. You're going to have this type of experience, right? And so we have to understand that. We have to know what those are. And when we're confident and competent again on delivering those core elements, what we're able to do is we're actually able to say, okay, now I can make this mine. Now I can make this yours. I can connect the guest with me. I can, connect the guest with the property. I can help them have this sense of place. I can have this genuine interest, right? These things that we hear about, and that are standards, and there are standards that help you do that. But ultimately, it's how do we take the standard out of the robotics and onto the stepping stone that truly paves the path to a wonderful guest experience that feels authentic, genuine, localized, and it feels so personal. And that's, I think, hospitality at its finest, no matter what segment of the industry you're in, delivering personal experiences. So I'm dying to hear what Alicia thinks, but because I know she's got more passion about that than I had, but I just think that that's the key of hospitality.
Well, I love this concept in general, and it was so key to the whole time that I was at Forbes Travel Guide. I also hired and trained inspectors, and so I'd have to teach them this concept about, yes, these are our standards, these are Forbes Travel Guide standards, but that doesn't mean that every experience is going to be the same, and it will or will not achieve the standard because some standards are very black and white. The room is clean, the room is not clean. If there's hair in the room, it's not clean, right? But most everything has lots of gray around it. You know, you're supposed to get your omelet in 10 minutes, but what if your server tells you the kitchen is slightly backed up? It will be about 15 minutes. Would that be acceptable for you, Mr. Tuttle? And you can say yes or no, right? And your expectations are managed from the front. That's still achieving the standard if you agree to wait a little bit longer. Or the concept of genuine interest you mentioned. I love this one because people are always asking. I have to ask these questions of the guest, right, to achieve this standard. And I say, no, what if the guest is reading a book and they don't want you to disturb them? That's also showing genuine interest in a guest, not just asking about their satisfaction. There's many different ways to skin that cat, so to speak. I mean, the guests, you have to be responsive to the guests, and that's kind of how we teach those concepts. So the ladies and gentlemen can preserve the individual guest experience while also adhering to the standards. So,
100%.
What what like operational rhythms, if you will, help teams live the standard, not just check it off?
oh, Pre-shift. Pre-shift is so important. We call it lineup here at the Ritz Carlton and the JW every single day, and role playing, role playing, role playing. Not everybody likes to get up there and act out scenarios in front of their friends, but we're fortunate. Our team is very willing to play most of the time because you don't know how you're going to behave in a situation until you practice that situation, till that guest is in front of you screaming at you about something and you have to diffuse it, or a guest is excited or they're sad. You don't know why they're here, and how are you going to behave in that moment? So practice, practice, practice is so important because there's always a million and one scenarios, and if we don't prepare our teams ahead of time for those scenarios, during our daily lineups, through routine training, practicing and auditing them on what we've talked about, that's the only way we can keep back to that center for our guest experience.
So I have a question. Like
Yeah.
when you do this,
Mhm.
I'm imagining a couple of people up front, and are you like giving them a little piece of paper that says this is the scenario, and the other person has no idea what they're about to get into, or do they know ahead?
Sometimes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So we'll say something as simple as, Mr. Amanis is checking in, and notice that he doesn't seem very happy. You ask why he's here, and he mentions he's here for a funeral. How do you react to that? How do you emotionally connect with the guest? How do you read the guest? These kinds of things, it could be anything as simple as that.
What do you
Practice.
think, Adam?
I think that again, confidence and competence, back
Mhm.
to it, is when you get to do these opportunities and role play, to, Alicia's point here, you don't get to, put up a little flag at your reception desk and say, okay, I'm taking check-ins for birthday celebrations and really happy people that have flown in here. No, you get dealer's choice, right? They come in, you get that. And so there is kind of this opportunity of saying, hey, this is the scenario, what's happening? But and it's interesting that in 90% of the cases, every guest that you interact with um, needs to experience the standards, right? The core standards of excellence. There are times where the guest will steer you away from standards, and it will be, hey, these aren't the right things to do. But that is such a one-off, right? Every guest, whether you are, as Alyssa saying, you're here for a funeral or you're here celebrating your honeymoon, I still need to deliver these standards of excellence to you throughout this experience to make sure I'm able to connect with you. The best way to do that is pre-shift, role play, feedback from actual observations, right? I love when we get to, first start to get into a property. Sometimes there's this worry of like, oh, I don't know if we're culturally ready to, provide feedback and do audits or things like that. And you know what? The best place to start is today. It always is. It's to say, hey, I heard that check-in. Let me tell you how it went. And that's how you build that culture of feedback. You can't,
Mhm.
it's not just launching it, it's just doing it, right? It's managers being present, it's being on the floor, it's having stand-ups or pre-shifts, it's having these meaningful discussions. And otherwise, the alternative is you have team members winging it or figuring it out on the fly. And I'll tell you what, nobody wants that. No employee wants that. No, leader wants that, and no guest wants that. And so the
Right.
better we can practice that, the better we can prepare for it and train for it, and give that feedback. It's just going to make everyone's experience, and I genuinely mean everyone's experience, the experience that's desired, right? And create positive ones.
Alicia, how has data helped you visualize slipping service levels?
Oh, we love data here. We love data, especially being so big. It's so necessary because inevitably someone is going to say, oh, that's the day Adam called off, or oh, that's the day the internet went out. And they say things are one-offs, but data helps you identify if it really was a one-off or if you had a pattern. And if there is a pattern, how do we dissect that? How do we action plan that? How do we use quality tools to fix our opportunities that we have here. So without data, we're really flying blind. We're winging it as well, just like Adam said. So it's much easier to hold someone to a standard, to explain a standard, to hold an expectation if you have data behind the why behind the what, really. So showing our results and what they mean is so important, and especially for properties of our size. But even if we were smaller, it's much easier to identify areas of challenge and opportunity with numbers, with information, with facts, with different data points than it would be just anecdotally all the time.
Like data, data. Let me tell you about my brain. Sorry for the scary nightmare that you're all about to witness, which is the inside of my brain. We, especially hoteliers, and I still count as a hotelier. I'll never be able to let go of the title. There is a million things going on in your brain. There is a million things that are happening, right? And we're 86ing this over here, and oh my gosh, this guest is coming in, and who ordered the balloons, right? Who's got this, and whose birthday is it? What's the VIP coming in? Budgets are due, whatever that may be. And I can specifically remember sitting down to write a team member's review, and it was like, you know what? I'm going to write this annual review based off of my last 2 weeks experience with them, how they're doing. Gosh, that's not fair to anybody, right? Data gives us the opportunity to look into performance. It looks us in to look. It gives us the opportunity to look into trends. It allows us to pinpoint things, and where data really kicked in for me. And I remember the first time that I looked at something and I said, "Oh my gosh, this isn't an issue with this person. This is actually an issue with this shift." Right? Everybody else on the team seems to be doing well, but every time someone's on this shift specifically, oh my gosh, like we're missing the boat here. Like we're doing something. What's going on? Why is it that what's happening with this shift? And when we dig in, it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're overwhelmed. We're getting, we don't have the staffing levels needed for the influx in business volume on a very, very specific time frame, like from 3 to 5 p.m. Surprise. But being able to look at that and adjusting the mindset, adjusting what needs to be done. But as we use data to drive our decisions and to look to make those decisions, it allows us to almost pull out from the emotional and really start to look at, say, okay, what actually needs to be done here? How do we actually need to improve, or where? Or vice versa, because we're always wanting to find the red, right, and make it green. Sure, there's just as much value of looking at the green, so to speak. Where are we being super successful? What is just doing amazing? When you have data and you can look at a team that, has some performance issues, and you could find a leader within your organization who runs a team that has those exact performance criteria in the green, and you think, okay, what is Alicia doing better than Adam? How can I bring Alicia into this, right? How can I help with that, right? And now all of a sudden, you're not racking your brain, and then we're throwing the book at the team members or at our associates or at the product or whatever it may be. Now we're actually looking at this to solve problems and really be able to deliver incredible leadership.
What's the impact of turnover on, consistency and how can onboarding become really a competitive advantage?
Cool.
Oh, gosh. We are very fortunate to have a very robust onboarding program here. And I think it's something that I'm fortunate that our general manager wants us to invest in our associates, because it helps with retention, but it also helps us meet our standards, right? So we have here a kind of lengthy orientation, and then we put everyone in an operational role into classes we call Welcome to Operations, where we literally introduce the standards, we introduce the concept of auditing and coaching, and say, this is going to be part of your experience here, that these are all of our standards. We expect you to execute execute on them. We divide people by discipline and teach them very specific standards, just from the macro lens from my team before they even get into their departments, and also introduce Yipy as our auditing tool and say, this is how we give you feedback to help you learn and grow, to help you understand if you're executing on the job, if to see if we are creating the competence that Adam spoke about, to create that confidence in their execution. So we really find from the beginning it's so important, and it helps. It helps in our guest satisfaction scores. It helps us reduce turnover. We've been introduced this program about 14 months ago. We already had a fairly low turnover rate compared to the industry average, but we're not immune to it, certainly, and certain departments have it more than others. So we're continually teaching month after month in orientation doing this. But it's wonderful. And those ladies and gentlemen who've gone through our classes and are introduced to these concepts of continual feedback are much more receptive to having feedback. That it's created that culture of understanding this is to help me do better, to create a better guest experience. It's not a punitive thing. I understand my standards and I know I will be audited on them. It's wonderful.
I just returned from a really great workforce summit, a hospitality workforce summit in Chicago. And in there, we looked at some industry data, and the industry has a roughly an 80% turnover, right, in line level teamwork. And when you look at that, first of all, the numbers should just be right. And a lot of that is obviously because of seasonality, but some hotels feel that more than others, right? Where if you're in an extremely seasonal hotel, where you've got to close down and reopen, during the winter or the summer or whatever that may be, and then you're experiencing 80, 90, 95% turnover. That's wild. But I part of that turnover, we know that one of the top reasons that individuals leave their organization or they cite was, I didn't have the tools, equipment, or knowledge to be successful in my role. I didn't feel trained. And then, they feel disgruntled. And then all of a sudden, when feedback starts getting introduced, it was like, well, gosh, you never taught me this in the first place. And now you want to write me up because you just want to get rid of me. Like all of these things where if you're able to establish from the very beginning, hey, here's our core expectations, back to not the fragmented standard experience, but truly, here's the experience for property ABC, right? Here's the experience. Here's your part to play in that. Here's what success looks like, sounds like, feels like. I'm going to help you build your competence, your confidence. I'm going to give you feedback. Your leaders are going to be giving you feedback. You're going to be getting everything that you need. The inevitable effect is I feel valued and trusted in my role. Why am I going to go anywhere else? Right? Why would I want to be? And as we really focus on that team member experience, then a huge chunk of that must be, and it cannot be complete without a focus on standards. It would be impossible to say we're a team member focused without focusing on those standards and those experiences.
Yeah, I have two sons early in their careers, and one's at Boeing, and both of them have complained about onboarding, training. And in my career, I've never known anybody that can train. Nobody knows how to train well. So,
Except
every
Alicia.
tool, huh?
I do.
Except
Well,
Alicia, she knows how.
yes. Where were you 20 years ago?
Sorry.
It's just tough. That's my point. It's just tough. Um, Practice. What practice has helped either one of you improve consistency and accountability, and
Mm.
while dispelling the negative stigma of feedback? Like, do people repel with feedback? What's that look like?
Well, I think what's really important for us in our hotels is we create a culture of feedback. We say all the time, feedback is a gift, and that we expect it. As leaders, we expect it from our ladies and gentlemen and associates, and that they know they're going to receive it from us. And it's coaching. It's coaching and accountability, but it's feedback, and we have this mindset of continuous improvement. And having that mindset across the properties, across the culture, and really having a culture that values that so much makes it a lot easier. it makes it a lot easier to make it not a negative because we're looking for the good as much as we're looking for the things that can be improved. And I think also what goes hand in hand with that is a culture of recognition. So when we're recognizing our employees, recognizing them beyond pay for doing things well, especially when it comes to executing our standards and service execution, and telling them about their great guest comments, that helps them feel better about when it's time to do something a little bit differently, when it's time to improve on something that where they maybe had a misstep or didn't fulfill an expectation. But talking about it all the time really makes all the difference because it's not a surprise to anyone ever.
Mm. I could share my own personal experience, but let me share one of one of our other clients. They just shared with me a couple months ago that I think is just super valuable. Of when we launched at that property, they were worried again about the culture and the feedback. And this is genuinely why it's called Yippee. Like, look, we got to celebrate. We got to find good things. We want to reverse the stigma that comes around auditing and standards and oh. And this is such a win because there was a manager who was spending time at the front desk watching a check-in happen. And the employee, they knew, the team member, they knew they were getting an audit done. Uh, and immediately after the guest left, the team member turned around and goes, "How did I do? Perfect, right?" And just when you have this excitement of finally saying, like, hang on, I don't have this dread or this worry of my manager watching me, of being seen and heard, quite literally. Instead, you have, I nailed that, right? I totally crushed that. And they were like, perfect 100. Oh my gosh, you did everything perfect. And when that feedback truly, as Alicia's saying they're doing at her property, when that truly becomes the gift, right? I mean, I want everyone in here to this call to think about the moments that we've grown the most and the people that we respect the most in our professional and hopefully even our personal lives are the ones that are helping us grow, are the ones that are helping us get better, that celebrate our wins and are there to celebrate that and to high five us and to, heck yes, keep going exactly like that, keep doing it, and are also there to help us say, hey, nope, not like that, right? And help give us that guidance and direction and steer us into those ways, into the way that we need to be, in the way we need to be going, excuse me. And so as we think about that from a professional perspective, as we think about that as employers, people that, hey, we're going to onboard you, we're going to ask you to come in and spend your day and your time, and we say we want to develop you, and we say we want to do these things, it comes back to creating this culture of feedback. And the way you create a culture is by doing it and by allowing the seeds of that action to grow, right? Allowing the team members to feel it, and create, and hopefully it's positive, right? And hopefully create that even when some of the feedback is hard. Um, but it is through that constant gentle pressure, as Danny Meyer would say, this constant gentle pressure of giving feedback, of demanding excellence from ourselves and from our team. That's how everyone improves and everyone lifts up. And in the end of the day, when you go home and think about the car ride home, and I want you to think about a day when, or maybe these two scenarios, you're driving home from work and nobody told you anything and you just did your day, right? Versus you're driving home from work and someone told you great things. They told you where you were being successful and your confidence and competence was boosted. And they also told you some areas to improve on. So you're able to like process that and say like, okay, how do I get better? How do I do this? One makes you a happier person. One helps you grow. And the other is making you stagnant. So that's what we've got to do in hospitality continuously, in my opinion.
Well, I'm expecting a call from Adam later today on how this went.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Alicia, how has Yippee helped you transform standards from static documents into a measurable system of excellence?
Well, I think it's combined so many of the things we've talked about. Before we used Yipy, we were only using Forbes Travel Guide as our benchmark, and that was infrequent and external. We weren't able to look at things more frequently and have more data. So it goes back to having all of those data points and providing that feedback on a much more regular basis, pulling all of our standards together because the things that are important to my engineering department are not the same things that are important to my housekeeping department or my food and beverage departments always. So everyone has what they need, but it all lives together. So I can slice it, dice it, and give it to whomever needs whatever they need in the moment in terms of standards or audits. But I also have access to all of this data to see how my team members are performing, and the leaders have access to that data, and also what was happening on the day that this audit occurred, and were we in a position to be excelling, or did we do something that to stifle our excellence that day? To understand all of these things. So it's given me such a clear picture into what's happening in my operations every single day because external auditing or even just our guest satisfaction surveys, guests don't always tell you why they rated you low or high for that matter. So I don't have a good understanding. So the continual observation and auditing that our leaders are doing and our training coordinators are doing to pull data into Yippy gives me great visibility into what's happening in my operation every single day. And it's been an incredible tool for all of us to use.
What do you got to add, Adam?
Oh man. Well, first of all, you know what's the best part about um, running a company like Yipy and having a tool like Yipy is meeting people like Alicia and seeing teams use it on a daily basis. And it's so fun to check in with there. And you open up and we're talking thousands of audits,
Mhm.
thousands of data points. Um, and every time, I get to look at that or have a connection with them, what I remember about that is that those represent actual, touch points between, team members and guests and products. And it's not just fake things. Like it represents the effort and energy of everyone at that property that's doing things. And so I think that what we hope as a company, what we genuinely hope for the most is that we're providing a tool to hotels that allow them to improve, that they can genuinely say, no, we are better because we use this. And better, I hope, is such an umbrella word between we're better leaders, we're better with our profitability, we're better on our retention, we're better on our service scores. All of those, I love whenever I hear a segment within each of those. But the goal is how do we help you rise? How do we help you get better and truly create this tool for our industry?
Fantastic. I always learn a lot when I talk with Adam and now Alicia. It was I learned a lot from you, and I hope we're talking again soon. We'll talk often, I
Yes,
think.
I look forward
If
to
you'll
it.
have me.
Absolutely, it'd be my
Right?
pleasure. Yeah.
Well, thank you both for your time. We're gonna wrap up uh, with Todd. Todd's gonna jump in here. Todd is Yippy's co-founder and COO, and he's just going to give us a little quick sneak peek at Yippy itself. And so, Todd, I think you have the power to let her rip.
Yes, thank you. And just sitting here listening, it just feels like such an honor and a gift to be able to serve such wonderful leaders like Alicia, and grateful for the chance to have just the thought leadership and the insight for us and for those in the leading hotels of the world collection. We also feel such an honor to be selected as a recommended solution for one of the premier collections of properties in the world. And our hope and desire is to not just be a technology provider, but to be a true partner in helping to achieve the excellence and goals that these properties define themselves by. And so please know that we're going to continue to look for opportunities to provide thought leadership insight, to connect to people like Alicia, to be able to see what things are others are doing that works well. And it feels a hard act to follow, to step in and actually focus on the technology side. I was thinking how, you think of an electrical system Most of that system is hidden in the walls, but it powers the beautiful lighting, it powers the entertaining technology. And from our perspective, we want to be in the background, helping to power the excellence of your cultures and of your systems and your people to provide amazing guest experiences. And so I'm not going to spend much time at all today in the technology. We just want to highlight a couple of things because there's been an ask and demand from properties to get that introduction. So we'll just do a very quick highlight and then look forward to opportunities to collaborate with any individual property that wants to learn more. But I think there'll be just three really quick things I'll highlight to give you a high-level overview of the platform. And one is just the ease of accessing and understanding standards across the entire property that you can provide to your associates, the ease of measuring the performance, and the ease of getting insight and building accountability, which again, as Alicia talked about, I think brings together a lot of the best practices that were talked about today. And so one of the ways that Yipy allows you to do that is to take your kind of standards manuals, whether that's Forbes, LQA, some specific property SOPs that have been built, and replaces those with a visually appealing, digitized, searchable catalog of standards. And so you can break these down in any custom way. And here at Yipy, we make it easy to be able to actually build these for you as a part of our implementation process. But those can be broken down by whatever your departments and teams are, and into the specific workflows that your associates actually need to manage on a day-to-day basis. Each standard has the ability to be enriched, where that enrichment can come with additional descriptions, reference links, training materials, attachments, images, videos, whatever is going to help them to understand and gain that competence, as has been talked about so much today, more quickly. But then that's extended further. So beyond just providing a great kind of catalog for those standards, Yipy, in order to apply the best practices to the fullest, our very license structure matches that, which includes unlimited users. And so you, throughout the property, can provide what we allow as a role-based, permission-based access to the system, so that any leader or any staff member can see just the standards that are for their role and have it broke down by the workflows that they're going through every day. And so this is a GM level view where you're seeing everything. But when people log in, they'll see just what's relevant for them. And they can click into, we'll take the door arrival process here and see, whatever kind of introductory information is helpful, and then what those standards are, again, with those enrichments to help guide them to understand those things easily. You could print those off into PDF. And then this is where that second component of ease of measuring performance comes in. So Yipy as a web-based app can be used on any device, where you can then come in and perform an audit. Those audits can be enriched with whatever data is going to be helpful. So from the start, we'll say which team that is, but it's really powerful. And one of the things that's missing in many people's auditing programs today, if they have one, is the ability to look at data by individual. And so that's where that can start here, is to actually select the personnel that's being audited, or the product, that all of these things will be catered to the workflow on what information is most helpful. And then in addition to that, you can add whatever other enriching data might be helpful to view by, if we want to look at guest type or what season we're in, what occupancy level. We've done more than you would typically do here, but just to demonstrate what that looks like. And you can come in and mark the passes, the fails. Most often people don't have a near. We found that as you're building an auditing culture, sometimes leaders aren't the best auditors and need a way of saying you're close, but it's still marked as a fail in the overall scores. You can add notes, you can attach pictures, videos, and submit these audits as it's been completed. Those can also include signatures, which is helpful for some of those HR processes as well. So as we then zoom back out, now that we're building in this consistency of audits, the real power and the way that this works like the electrical system, powering better onboarding, training, development of our staff, accountability to power better guest experiences and higher consistency, is in the data. And so in our compliance reporting, this allows you to see those kind of audit scores by every variable you can imagine. So I'm going to open up our data here a little bit and look at the data across the year. Come in there and apply that. And you can see compliance based off of those different workflows. You can see it by standard. What are the standards that we're performing the best at and the worst at across the property? We can see it by position, by team, by employees, by specific assets. And then where this gets the most powerful is then as you look at some of the trend data and what's going up and down over time, as well as you begin to filter to get specific. And let me share one brief story, and as we wrap here in the next 2-3 minutes, a luxury independent property in the Northeast. It's a Forbes focused property. Post COVID had dropped in their Forbes rating and had been working actively to try to achieve that rating again. They decided three of those teams had an average about 70% performance across the whole property, every team, every department. Three teams decided to pilot with Yipy, one of them being the guest services team. And that guest services manager, as they got to doing consistent audits, would come in every day in the pre-shift and filter by who was scheduled for that shift that day. And then take a look at what are the specific performance of standards of those staff members, what can I celebrate and what that needs focus, and would emphasize those things in each pre-shift meeting. This cycle of insight and accountability led that within a 4-month period of that kind of piloting, Forbes came back and did their next audit, and the three teams that were in this pilot went from the 70 average up into the 90s, and this guest services team went to 98%. And the other teams and the rest of the property remained stagnant with where they were. And so it just shows the power of that. And when we talked to them, their analysis was back to this idea of competence, as they said that the difference maker of following this process is they truly gained an understanding of all their standards through this insight and transparency. And so I think those are the things, again, the ease of accessing and understanding standards, the ease of measuring performance, the ease of seeing performance. Of course, you can access all the individual, audits and see those results. As well as one of the things that I think is really, really, powerful as you're building an auditing culture is just to have the data on the actual audits themselves. And I want to assure everyone here that there's a way to crawl, walk, run into this type of a system and program that you don't need to be where Alicia's at right from the start in their program or beyond. But there's a way to build toward it, and all the tools and the data to have the accountability for leaders to work into the system is here. So again, we feel so privileged and honored to be a part of the leading family now. We will be excited and honored to speak with any of you, regardless of where you are in your process in this type of a system today. And to see if we can provide some level of support to your goals and objectives. There's an internet page that is now available to you with leading hotels of the world, where you can access more information, including pricing. There are some pretty great discounted rates that we're offering as a part of this that makes it budget accessible. And so we look forward to whatever conversations we can have with people here in the coming weeks and months.
Fantastic. And for anyone who wants to contact us, Todd, why don't you give your email, and that'll be a quick way to get a hold of the right person.
Okay, I'll throw it into the chat now.
Todd@yipy.io. It's almost a song there. We could sing it if you want. Fantastic. Thank you so much for everyone who has joined us. I know you guys are super. Is there anyone more busy than a hotelier? Right? And Alicia, thank you so much for spending time with us. We know you didn't have to be here, and we appreciate you. And you too, Adam. You're all right. We'll keep you around.
No, thank you, Alicia, for
It was
coming
my
with everything.
pleasure. It was wonderful to see you all and talk today. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, learned a lot.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you to the leading folks too. And I'm sure we'll be seeing each other more and more. We'll end
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.